Yes, I'm a finger picker. Never was able to master the art of holding a flat pick. When I first started fooling around with guitars, I had a strong attack on the right hand, and the pick would always fall off or something. And it's amazing because my daughter does the same thing. She has no use for picks. She just plays with her hands, you know, and so I guess it's a natural thing. I don't know. I started off as an acoustic player. You know, I had acoustic guitars. It was an era when I was seeing people like Brownie McGee and Mississippi Fred McDowell and John Hammond, and they were all solo performers with acoustic guitars, and they all played in this finger picking style, thumb pick, finger pick, and this sort of thing, and you know, and when she was starting out, Bonnie Raitt played like that. Before she got electric, she was an acoustic player, bottleneck player. It was a fairly common thing at that time. It was very in vogue in the late 60s, early 70s, and I was just picking up on that at the time. And a natural way for me to play was that way. And then when I saw Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, and all the real greats, Mississippi Delta Bluesmen, I noticed they all played that way. So quite naturally, when I was doing this, Muddy Waters was originally an acoustic player because when they started, there were no electric guitars. So they started out, you know, playing this way to fool it, make it sound full. So when I went to the electric and we formed the band, they'd say, "Oh, you really got a grip." And I said, "Well, I kind of learned the way the masters did, the way they did it." So I said, "Well, if Keith Richards listened to Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry, who did Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry listen to?" So I'd listen to Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley. I said, "Well, these guys got it together." I'd say, "Well, who did they listen to?" And people say, "Well, they listened to Muddy Waters and Elmore James." And then I said, "Well, who did Muddy Waters listen to?" And they'd say, "Robert Johnson." That's where I stopped. I stopped right there. So I kind of had to go backwards to go forward. So I do like a crash course, Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, Elmore James, and Jimmy Reed, and then got into Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. And I said, just take it from there. Then take your thing there. I also listen to a lot of, you know, like country pickers too. People who did, you know, finger picking style in country bands. I had a whole album. I listened a lot to Flatt and Scruggs because they were country players, real country players. I'm not talking about country and Western music, a marketable thing. I'm talking about something that's real country players because they couldn't afford electric equipment, and they would sit on back porches with these big acoustic boxes and picking out these rhythms and these styles, you see. And everybody did it. I saw Elizabeth Cotton play one day. I was lucky I saw her play one day, and she did that. So I just said, well, I guess this is how it's done. You know, long before the flat picking came in and the electric guitars and all that kind of thing. So you know, I just listening to as many things as I could and then building on top of that. And then one day I just said, I can't play acoustic guitar anymore. I got to form a band. And I saw Hound Dog Taylor playing, and he had a thumb thing going and a finger thing going. He's playing his slide. I said, that's what I got to do if I'm going to get anywhere. I can't go around the rest of my life imitating John Hammond. I got to do something that was very difficult to do, to play like Taj Mahal or John Hammond, to play alone and make it full and do it for a whole hour. Very, very hard. And my hat's off to those cats who can do that. Because it's very strenuous, and you can't make any mistakes. And you break a string, you're dead. I just said, this is just too difficult to do. So Jeff Simon, a childhood friend, and I got together and said, we're going to form a band. We're going to make a band like Hound Dog Taylor. We're going to make a three-piece band like Canned Heat. And we're going to open for Jay Giles, and we're going to open for the Allman Brothers. He said, okay, let's go to work. See? So I got this 125 from a hock shop. Put it in, and I said, wow, it's like an acoustic guitar because it has F-holes and arch top. So I was able to pick it. I said, it's not like the Fenders or the Gibson Les Pauls. And I said, I can't play those guitars. So we found this guitar. If we hadn't have found it, we probably wouldn't have had a band. So I couldn't make that transition from acoustic to electric like so many others were able to do that. John Lee Hooker's guitars are very much made like acoustic guitars. He played a 330, he played an Epiphone. Howling Wolf had a big Epiphone when he played his Delta blues. You know, he played like. rooster, 2 days of Clover Day. You know, that kind of thing. So they came from that, and I said, well, that's what I want to do. And it wasn't even like I was searching to try to make it as authentic as I could. It just happened to be that's the way I played. There was a guy came to see us play for a while. He saw us 5 times, and he came up to the front, and he said, holy smokes, I never knew you had a thing on your finger, because it's copper. And he would sit in the balcony, and he'd see my hands, and he thought I was making that sound just with my hands. I said, you're crazy. He said, I saw you took it off and threw it into the crowd. He said, I thought you'd take your finger off. I said, no, it's a slide. This copper slide is, I went after that because I saw Muddy Waters was the only other cat that I know of, played a piece of copper slide. And he came out on a bandstand, and his band was playing, and then they stopped playing, and he had his guitar, and he played. He sang Robert Johnson's Walkin' Blues to that. So I said, "Though George, that's as close as you're ever going to get to it, the real thing." And I was about as far away from me as I am to you, and that's what he played. No band accompaniment. And he pulled those strings. I mean, he pulled them out about this far and snapped them. He snapped those strings, man. And I was just like, God, this is how it's done. And he was at a low volume. He had a Fender Telecaster. It was red, a red with one pickup, and he had it at low volume and playing through a relatively small amp. But it was there. You know what I mean? And I mean, he really nailed it. And I said, well, that's it. That's the real thing. I was also fortunate enough to go by Howling Wolf's hotel room one time, and I heard him through the door playing his guitar like this alone. And I was like, wow. And I looked through the curtains. I could see him sitting on the bed. He had a music stand and a big, fat, white Epiphone guitar playing these. Stomping his foot like this. And I knocked on the door. Kept right on going. Didn't even get. I said, that's a confident heterosexual right there. Didn't even come up and answer the door. It could have been the president. It wouldn't have mattered to Wolf, because he was getting off on his own thing. You see? So these are the real people I'm talking about, Jimmy Brown. You know what I'm saying? Not a high school band doing Jan and Dean. Watching B.B. King play, watching Elvin Bishop play, I learned that those cats rarely fool with the knobs. They'd control the tone and the volume with their hands. And that's how the great players really play. Like even guys who are playing acoustic guitars. They can. Brian B. was a master at bringing the volume up with his hands and bringing it down, even changing the tone. You know how hard to do that is with an acoustic guitar? To make it sound beautiful and then real gruff the next minute. That's someone who really has the instrument mastered. You know, I'm still working. One of these days I'm going to learn how to play because I'm just having too much fun. It's kind of like driving a Chevy Nova. If you take a Chevy Nova and you drive it at 70 miles an hour, it performs. If you drop it down to 55, it just stalls out. It doesn't happen. You see, if you have it there, and then you turn it down a little bit, you get, it's not happening. So the idea is when you do it, you get a small amp, and then crank it up and put a microphone on it. And then you get where you want to be. Well, one of them is Howlin' for My Baby, which you brought up. We have a kind of a rock version of 6 Days on the Road, just been covered by everybody. And I just thought we'd throw our hat into the ring with that one a few years ago, put a slide guitar to that. Howling Wolf's Highway 49, and Rhoades Treat Her Right. And we also have Blue Highway, written by Nick Ravnites. They were like in past albums, some albums that are kind of out of print now. And then we had 6 more that we just did. We've been working on Run Myself Out of Town by the Hayes Brothers, Born Lover by Muddy Waters, and the tune that everybody seems to be making a big fuss over is Tail Dragger, written by Howling Wolf, and written by Willie Dixon and recorded by Howling Wolf. So That's the meat and potatoes of it. We're just, but like any other band, we're just trying to get new and exciting material in the show so we can keep going as long as we can. Sometimes one or two new tunes you can stretch it out for a couple more years, and that's basically what I'm trying to keep working. It's called The Dirty Dozen. The Bad to the Bone I riff is nothing more than kind of a variation of I'm a Man, Hoochie Coochie Man. There are several Mississippi Delta, Chicago blues styles come from that. And I just kind of honed it a little, refined it a little bit, and made it a little. Originally made the song, I wanted Muddy Waters to record it. His people passed. That didn't make me feel very good. I turned Bo Diddley on the song, and he wanted to do it, but he didn't have a record deal. I said, okay, we're going to do it. But I wanted Muddy Waters to do this song. If he had lived, I would have got it to Elvis Presley. That's the guy going to really taking it right to the roof. So it was just like you got to use both these fingers. You got to bring your little finger up and your thumb down at the same time. So you're like kind of like turning a doorknob, like this. So you pull it up. You got to hit it twice. Crash, crash, crash. And then you got mayhem, pandemonia, and a whole lot of problems. After that, a whole lot of problems after that. See, if Muddy Waters had just done it, it would have been out of my life, and I just could have just sunk back into wherever it was I was from before. But first time I met Hank Williams Jr., I walked up to him to shake his hand. He didn't even say hello to me. He comes up and puts his face right in my face. And he doesn't say hello. He goes, wah, 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 wah. And he repeated that for the next 48 hours. Well, I mean, right in the middle of talking about, well, how do you think the Mets are going to do this year? I'll tell you how they're going to do. Wah, 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 wah. Guy's insane, you see. And now you got all this, you see. But it's just basically the lyrics as well, combining, little things of, tongue-in-cheek macho lines like a Bo Diddley or a Muddy Waters, it's bad about it, it's a fantasy that all males have, and sure you and I share that, everybody wants to be Errol Flynn or Sean Connery or, James Cagney, but we're not. I mean, everybody wants to be Steve McQueen, and every girl would like to be with Steve McQueen, or for an hour anyway. So that's all that song is. It's a fantasy song. It's not a reality song. It's a fantasy song. You also get a good sustain, too. Keep it out there with the opening tuning that Keith Richards has mastered through years of listening to the Everly Brothers and Bo Diddley, who used open tunings to get a very full sound. That kind of thing. And he's mastered that and written some incredible classics around those open tunings. Yeah, that's a Hank Williams piece that that was just like a warm-up song we used to do in a sound check. It was a sound check song, and our drummer was crazy about it. I really thought much about it myself. Just something to do to get loose. We checked it in the clubs. And we made our second record with Rounder Records. We didn't have enough material to cover it. And actually, Moving On Over and The Sky Is Crying and Who Do You Love are the last three things we cut on that record just to fill the record out. And they became three of our popular songs. So, hey, you never know, So it's just basically a shuffle. I come in last night about 10:30. A baby of mine wouldn't let me in. Moving on over. Just a basic shuffle with a slide. So it's like blues people can get behind it. Rock people like it because there's a slide in it. And it's got country lyrics. Actually, it's got the original rock lyrics. If you say, I come in last night about 10:30. You can go, when the clock strikes 2, 3, and 4, we're gonna rock, 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 and rock some more. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock. And boom, boom, boom. It's all the same. It's all the same. See, it's just one person's different little twist on it. They just each generation they pull it up a little bit more. It's Bad to the Bone. stutter is, you know, I mean, Roger Daltrey used it first. And he got it from John Lee Hooker from a song called Stuttering Blues. So Roger Daltrey sang, you know, talking about my generation. 10 years after that, they had a song called Baby, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. So 10 years after that, I said, every 10 years, things are wide open again. Because you get a whole new audience of people coming along. And you just, and I'll be the first to say it. And say, well, where'd you get that? I said, it's part of the lesson. Just came with the territory, you know. I'm just following what went on before me. I'm just a mere pupil here, you know, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, just carrying on, throwing little things in there. You're a generic rock group, if you will, the Destroyers. Well, you kind of got to pull it, hit all three strings at once. So you use these two fingers and this thumb to pull it out like that. So if you're a flat picker, you're in trouble. If you're a flat picker, they go, it's just one chord. How does that? No, you have to be that style. See, it's just one bourbon, one scotch, one beer. A guy who really could play that really well was Brownie McGee. He played a great version of Bourbon, Scotch, and Beer, solo version with an acoustic guitar and just using his hands in that fashion. You know, can really play the guitar really well like that, that slam rhythm, besides John Hammond, who's the best at that, is Mick Jagger. I saw Mick Jagger in a movie with a big acoustic guitar and really playing John Lee Hooker and Robert Johnson. And he's really slapping the strings heavy. And he's got it down. I'm like, whoa, why don't you do that more often? You know, good as anybody I've ever heard. So everybody's aware of this stuff. I was just the last kid to the party, Jimmy. You know, everybody came before me can tell you the same stuff I'm telling you. It's like I say, I went to the same school as Eric Clapton and Keith Richards and Elvin Bishop, but they graduated with honors. I squeaked by with a C+.